All right, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you joining us today, yet with another developer workshop. And today we're going to talk about APEX plus server-side JavaScript. Having APEX engine as a feature of the database itself, you get a lot of advantages. You get to have access to all the features of the Oracle database. And in Oracle 21c, there is a new feature called MLE, Multilingual Engine, which allows you to write JavaScript in the server side. Today's workshop is all about this. We will utilize JavaScript in the server side. This has plenty of advantages. For example, if you have one of the team members who doesn't know how to write PL SQL code, they are JavaScript developers. They can contribute back to your application. Or if you would like to utilize some of those JavaScript libraries, or simply because you like JavaScript, or you want to do something that's much easier to be done in JavaScript language compared to PL SQL. My name is Salim Hilayel. I am the Principal Product Manager for the Oracle Application Express, and I'll be your instructor today. If you have any question, please put that in the chat. And if you need a breakout room manager, the breakout room manager will assign you to one of our experts. So I'm not alone here. I come with a bunch of experts to help you throughout the lab. Now, in order to run today's workshop, you need to have an Oracle Cloud account. Please, if you haven't done so, make sure that you visit the bit.ly link, bit.ly/trial-210525. Make sure once you create your account to select one of the regions in the slide. It has to be either Frankfurt, Ashburn, Phoenix, or London, because these are the regions that we have Oracle 21c database. If you're going to have the account, this account for the first time, or even if you have an existing account, this will give you a credit that you can utilize for 30 days to access all the services, the paid services, plus you will get access also to the always free services. Today's lab will utilize the always free. So you have the credit for yourself to try other services in Oracle Cloud. So please make sure to do the cloud account if you haven't done so. If you haven't done the Oracle Cloud account yet, if you haven't signed up, go to the bit.ly link /trial-210525 and create a cloud account right now. If you have an always free account previously, and you don't want to create one, it's fine as long as your home region is part of the regions mentioned in this slide. If it's Frankfurt, Ashburn, Phoenix, or London, then yes, you can. What I need you to do is, once you have the cloud account, is you should be able to access the Oracle Cloud Console. The moment you provision your cloud, the moment you have your account ready, I need you to be here in the Cloud Console so we can provision an APEX service. You can do the lab in both ways, either APEX service or something called autonomous database. Both of them will allow you to have an APEX workspace and create APEX applications. We will go with the APEX service. Again, it's an always free. So we're going to use the always free offering from the APEX service. You can later on, if you want to, you can upgrade it to the paid one. All right, so this is the link to the hands-on lab. So if you have a cloud account already, you please access that hands-on link, and it will take you, let me go to the browser. It will basically take you here. All right, so in this hands-on lab, what we will be doing, as I said, we have four more main labs. We will create in lab number one, we'll create an app from a spreadsheet, and we will tweak that a little bit, and we will prepare a CDO code in SQL Workshop running JavaScript in the server side. And then we will take that code, tweak it a little bit more, and embed that code in APEX application itself in two places, in a process and in a validation. And in the last lab, we will even extend our application with external modules, external JavaScript modules. So before doing that, make sure that you provision an APEX service. And how to do that? In getting started, there are a couple of options to obtain an APEX workspace. Option number 1, which is an APEX application development service, and option number 2 is Oracle Autonomous Database. We will go with option number 1. You need to follow the steps here to provision an APEX instance, a new APEX instance. I'm going to do it very quickly for you. Make sure that you select the always free option and make sure that you select the 20C database version and provide a password. Remember the password and hit create APEX service. So let me do that very quickly for you. So I'll go to the hamburger menu here, click on it, go to developer services, hit APEX instances, and then click on create APEX service. Now make sure that the always free is enabled and make sure that the database version is 21C. Then put a password for the admin user, confirm the password, and click create APEX service. That's all what you need. Now I have a couple, so I can't create any more services because the always free will give you only up to 2. So mine is ready. So just create it, wait for it until it turns from orange to green. In minor cases, it might take a little bit longer while it's actually provisioned. If it takes a long time, just hit refresh and make sure that you have the APEX logo in green color and it says available. Yes, if somebody is facing that, I'm selecting the right region, but I don't see 21C, make sure that you hit the always free because 21C is part of the always free. So make sure that always free is enabled, then you will see the 21C. Perfect. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you a little bit more time to make sure that you provision the APEX. And once you have the APEX instance running, you need to hit launch APEX button. Because this is the first time you're launching APEX, the administration services will launch and you have to put the password. So which password is this? It's the same password that you put to provision the APEX instance itself. So the same password. The moment you log in, you need to hit create workspace. And you need to provide some details to create a database user, a password, and a workspace name. You could utilize the sample data here, or you could actually put your own database username and your own workspace name. It's up to you. And you have to provide a password again for the workspace administrator. So you have a username and password for the Oracle Cloud. You have an admin username and password for the APEX instance. And you have a third username and password to manage the APEX workspace. So now in APEX workspace, we will be able to create applications. You can have more than one workspace in APEX. So the moment you create a workspace, click on the workspace name and log in with the details. And that's what you should see. You should be able to see APEX workspace. Now, I like the dark color, but in your case, it might be light. So I'll continue with the dark. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to finish this. So in getting started, I'm going to repeat, you make sure that you have followed option number 1. And in option number 1, you'll basically create an APEX instance, going to developer services from the hamburger menu, clicking on APEX instances, hitting create APEX service button. Make sure that the compartment is selected. There should be a compartment here. So usually it's root, the root compartment. And make sure that you hit the always free option. Make it enabled. Then select 21C and then put a password, repeat the password and create the APEX service. wait for it to turn green. If it takes a little bit long time, just hit refresh in your browser. Then launch APEX, click on launch APEX button, put the same password you did for the APEX instance, and create the workspace. Now we will put a database user and a workspace name and a password for that workspace. Then we need to log in, and then we are inside APEX. The moment you create the cloud account, by the way, you can't go directly to the developer services and hit APEX instance and create a new instance. You need to wait a little bit till the message, there should be a message here that your account is being prepared or being provisioned. Once that message is gone, then you can actually start provisioning your service. At least please make sure that you have the cloud account, and then it might take time for the provisioning, but what I will do, because I'll do the lab for you first, then I'll give you time to do it. So this way we can save some time. So the first lab, I'll do it very quickly, and then I'll give you time to do it. So in the first lab, what we are doing is we basically are going to create an APEX application based on a spreadsheet data. Then later on in the other labs, we will tweak that application. So we will go to create new app, load it from a file, going to copy and paste, and use one of those data sets that comes with APEX. It's bundled with APEX. So we will select the project and tasks, put a table name, project underscore tasks, and then load the data. So let me do it very quickly for you. So I'm going to create a new app, and I'm going to select that I'm going to create that app from a file. I don't have the data set with me, so I'm not going to drag and drop the Excel sheet or the spreadsheet, but I can use the copy and paste. And in there, APEX comes bundled with some data sets. One of them is project and tasks. So let me hit next. So what I'll be doing is I'll be actually creating a table out of that sample data. And then I will create an app based on that table. So it's project tasks, project underscore tasks. That's a preview of the data with the columns. I'm going to load the data. And if everything goes correct, then I should be able to see 73 rows. I'll hit create application button. And now what the engine will do, it will open that table, parse different data columns, and create pages for me. So let me select all the features and hit create applications. So all these pages have been created for us, right? So if you are new to APEX, that's quite known for APEX developers. It's a low-code platform. It will basically parse the table, create the pages, link them together, and it will create page items. And it will be smart when doing so, because every page item will represent the data type of the table in that column. The generated application, by the way, is highly responsive. You can run it from your mobile device, you can run it from your tablet, you can run it from your desktop, so you don't need to rewrite anything. Once our app is running, what we will be doing is we will tweak the app, we'll change the report page, and we will use JavaScript to do so. So let's give it some time. And let me also, while it's being created, give you also what are the requirements that we will be doing. So the first requirement is you have this application that manages the different tasks of the projects. And we would like to extend the end date for a particular project by 1 day, but under one condition. The status for that task should not be closed. So if the status is not closed yet, because it makes sense, you don't want to extend a closed task, right? You want to extend an open task. So if you have a task where the status is not closed and you're selecting a certain project, so please make sure that you extend all these tasks that have this open status that are not closed by 1 day. And the requirement tells us that you have to do that using JavaScript. You cannot use PL SQL, you have to use JavaScript. So it seems that so many people are using the 21C infrastructure. It's getting a little, it's taking more time than expected, but anyway, so we're there. So now that's the app. I'm logging in the app. If I click on project task report, that's what I will be changing here. So I'll have a button here that says extend the project, and I'll move the column, the projects column on top here. So, but that's in lap number 2. So lap number 1 is done. All what you need to do is create an app, go to create from file, copy and paste, select the dataset project and tasks, give the table name project underscore task, and hit create. That's it. So I'll give you some time to do it, probably 4 minutes, and then I'll be back. If you have any question, please don't forget to post that in the chat. So guys, if you get an access to the APEX workspace, if you're done with the account, you did provision under developer services, you did provision an APEX instance, and you could log into the APEX workspace. All what you need to do is to follow lap number 1. Follow the steps in lap number 1. So first, load the project and tasks data. Hit create application and click on run application and log into the app. Once you're there, you're done with lap number 1. So 2 more minutes and then we can jump to the next lap. Okay. So lap number 1 is pretty straightforward. We didn't do much. We just used one of those data sets that comes with APEX, and we created an app based on that data set. We just put the table name and we followed the instructions in lap number 1. Now we'll move to lap number 2. And in lap number 2, remember the requirement? We said that we would like to be able to extend the end date. Now that's the end date for the tasks for a certain project by 1 day, as long as the status is not closed. All right. So let's use SQL Workshop to write a pseudo code first. So I'll simply go to SQL Workshop, SQL Commands, and I'll simply run this query. So I'll copy and paste that. Okay, so I'm in SQL Commands now. I'll make sure that I'm either in SQL or PL SQL, so I can run SQL code, and then let me run. So I'm actually selecting the tasks that belong to email integration project and the status is not closed, right? These are the open tasks. And if I look at the end date, is 25th of April, and this one is 14th of July, right? So I want a way to extend those end dates using JavaScript, but there are a couple of ways to do that. So the first one is using the DBMS underscore MLE package in Oracle database 21C. So if I copy the code here and I go back to the PL SQL code and I remove the select statement, paste the code, it's pure PL SQL, right? And look at the dates here, 25th of April, and this 14th of July, right? So if I run the code, what will happen, I got a couple of records updated. And if I run the query again, I should get them updated or extended by 1 day, right? So those couple of records have been extended with 1 day, right? And what the code does, you're actually writing a code in JavaScript and you are utilizing the DBMS underscore MLE package to execute that code, that JavaScript code. And you're telling it that this is a JavaScript, okay? And then after you're done, you're dropping the context. So far it's cool, right? But it's a bit hard to read, right? Because you're running the JavaScript from within database. Well, APEX has another way to do it. The next step, it will actually do it, but this time, now please look at the end date here is 26th and 15th, right? So this time I'm going to do it with JavaScript, but instead of selecting PL SQL, I'm going to select JavaScript MLE. And look, even the syntax highlighting, it has changed a little bit. Okay, great. So I'm doing here a mapping to this bind variable, the project. I'm giving it a static value that I put intentionally here, which is email integration. In reality, when I take that code into my application, into my page, into my button, I would like to change that to make it dynamic. So it will pick the project that I select from a select list. But in our case, because this is just a pseudo code, I would like to test that JavaScript code works in the first place. You can note that there is a namespace called APEX now, and you can actually do auto completion. But I won't do anything. Now let me run it and let me see if that actually has changed. Whoops. I was running SQL and JavaScript. And now if you look at the dates now, they have been extended for both of the tasks. So now it's 27th, and instead of 15th of July, it becomes 16th of July. But this time I'm using JavaScript, pure JavaScript. Great. So I think that's it for step number one. Now, step number two, what I would like to do is I'd like to take the project column out of the picture, save the report, and then create a region and put an item in that region to select the project. So let me do it very quickly. So if I go to the app builder, or I can go from here, and let me go to the columns. So first, I would like to make sure that project is no more there. And I'd like to save my report. So let's make it as a default and primary. So every time that I log into the app, it will remember my selection. Now let me go to edit page 4 and now add the region where I put an item there. So let me click on content body, create region, make sure that the sequence here is 5 and the name or the title is project. So let's call it project, and this is 5. So it comes on top. And next, I will add an item to that region. I'll call it P4 project, which is a select list. So right click, page item. Don't worry if I'm going a little bit fast. The session is recorded and the videos will be available to you. And you have also the link to the hands-on lab or to the workshop that you can do it at your own time if you like to. And you have access to your Oracle Cloud, that always free, it never expires. Let me make it select list, and I will go to the SQL query and simply copy this query here. Make sure that display extra value is disabled, and I can put select project in the null display value. If I save now and run, now the project column is gone. I have another region called project. I have a list of all the projects. So basically, I think that's it for this lab. Oh, next I need to add a button, right? So I need to add a button here that says extend the tasks for the selected project. So I'm gonna go to that region buttons, create a button. And I think that's the name of the button, extend project tasks, and make the sequence 20. So that's the sequence here. So it will be a little bit up. Make sure that it belongs to right of interactive report position. So that's the position of the button that I would like to have. It's just next to these buttons. Let me hit run and save. And I think I need to do a little bit more. I don't like this color, so I remember that I need to use the template options and make sure that the type is warning, because now this will actually extend the tasks, just to highlight it. So that's it. So that's it for this lab. I'll give you some time, probably 10 minutes to do it, guys. And if you have any question, please post it in the chat and we will try our best to help you. I'll be back. Now, one thing, guys, some regions are busier than the others, and it might take a little bit of time to provision or to apply privileges, the right privileges for you to create tables. So if you get that error that you cannot create the table, you just need to wait a little bit and then you can try it again. Yeah, a couple of guys had this error. So in a few minutes, we will jump to the next one. Now, we had that JavaScript running in the SQL commands, and we tested the SQL code and we liked it. Now we would like to input that in the page itself. We prepared the project task report. We added that button. So I would love to select a project, and then based on the tasks for that project, once I click on extend project task, I would like to actually extend the task, but this time from within Apex application. So in a few minutes, we will go to lab 3 and see that. So far, we didn't do much, right? We created an app from spreadsheet, and then we took that spreadsheet app, we changed a little bit the report page, and we did a SQL code in SQL workshop and SQL commands. In particular, we tested extending the end date for the tasks for a certain project where the status is not closed using a couple of ways. The first way was a database way using DBMS MLE package. And the other way, the APEX way, is utilizing JavaScript right away from SQL commands. Let me move to lab number 3. And you can continue working on the hands-on lab anytime you like. So let me show you how we can do actually lab number 3. In lab number 3, we will extend the report with JavaScript process. So we will add a process. We will give the name extend project tasks. So we will come to the report. This is the report. And we will basically go to the process here and create a new process. Give it the name extend project tasks. And then we will copy the JavaScript code here. And we will paste it here. Just make sure that you're selecting JavaScript MLE as the language. And paste the code. And this is a little bit different than the one that we use in the CD code. What we did change is we're using the apex.end namespace, and we are utilizing that to actually pass the P4 project value from JavaScript to the query here. All right. So that's the item name, P4 project, remember? That's the item. So I would like to take that item and pass it into this bind variable, into project bind variable, where it can be used in the where statement. And in the where statement, I'm doing a select on all the tasks for that project, making sure that this task is not closed. So I'm calling a function, I'm making sure that the status is not closed. Otherwise, it will basically return false. All right, so I have that process. I would like to run it, but only under one condition. I would like to run it when I click on extend project tasks. So let me make sure that when button pressed is equal to extend project tasks. Perfect. So I created the process, this time totally in JavaScript. And that SQL code that we tried in SQL commands now is in effect inside Apex itself. All right. But I think I missed something. Did I miss something, guys? In the preparation here, it looks like I did not do some of... After the buttons. Yeah, I guess so. So I need to do a little bit of changes if you don't mind. Now, let the process be there. But now I need to make sure that I update my report here to have a where statement, because that where statement will pick its value from the item itself, right? Which is P4 project. So in the where statement, I would love to select project equal to P4 project. That's the item value that I would select. So I can filter all the tasks only for that project. And I would love to submit that item so it's considered in the where statement, because without submitting the item value, it will not be considered in the where statement in the server side. So that's number one. And then the second point is I would like to create a dynamic action. So whenever this is changing, the report will reflect whatever the value of the project. So I will execute the refresh. So I will right click on project item, create a dynamic action, call it on change, and the action will be simply refresh. And what am I refreshing? I'm refreshing a region. Which region exactly? It's the project tasks region. It's the table region. All right. So if I save now, and if I run my app, and I say, yep. And now I select, for example, email integration, it should get me only the tasks for that project. Now, because I added a process in the next lab, I moved, that was actually from lab number 2, which I forgot to do. But now I moved to lab number 3. And in lab number 3, I'm now adding a process, a JavaScript process, when I click the extend project task button. So let me click on it. And I would assume that these two tasks, the open tasks, should be extended by 1 day. Talking about the end date here. So this 27 should be 28, and 16 should be 17 if I'm lucky. So let me try it. And it works. So 28, and now it is 17th of July. So now, and the closed status or the closed task, they're not touched at all. So now I'm doing this now, this time, not from the SQL command, I'm doing it from APEX itself. That was the first part. The second part is I want to add a validation. And again, this time using JavaScript. So the validation is, let's look at this task, for example. It's a closed task, right? And if I open the form now, and I would like to change the owner, it will allow me, or the assigned to, which doesn't make sense. If the task is closed, I shouldn't be able to change who is the owner of that task and who closed that task, right? So let me add a validation. Let me go to page 5 and go to the processing and create validation. And now I'm going to call the validation tasks cannot be closed. And the validation code is pretty simple. I just need to make sure that it is JavaScript. And the code is the P5 status should not be equal to closed. Because if it's closed, that validation should not pass. And there is an error message. It will say that you cannot update assigned to, the task has been closed already. So let me copy and paste that in the error message. And the associated item is the assigned to. So I cannot change the assigned to person if the status is not closed. Let me save that. And now because it's a model dialog, I cannot run it directly. I have to close it and open it again from here. And now if I try to say Salim and I apply the changes, it will not allow me. So now the validation is done. This time not using PL SQL, it's using JavaScript. So we added JavaScript in a couple places. We added the JavaScript for the process to extend on the report all the tasks that belong to a certain project that I select. And we added JavaScript code, simple expression in the validation part. So I'm going to give you some time. So 9 minutes, probably, or 10 minutes to do lab number 3. And if you have any question, please post it in the chat. Somebody has asked if there is a performance enhancement using pure JavaScript code instead of using, PL SQL and DBMS MLE. I wouldn't expect so, to be honest, because what APEX is doing is we are trying to wrap all this PL SQL code for you. So we do the connection handling, we do the binding, we made it easier. Not sure the performance will be affected or if it's going to be faster or not, because at the end of the day, we're mapping to the DBMS MLE, I guess. So, and if you don't have 21C, you cannot try this hands-on lab. You must have a 21C. So you should have a cloud account in one of those regions that support 21C in the always free option, using always free offering. So it has to be either Ashburn, Frankfurt, London, or Phoenix. Somebody has asked a very interesting question about MLE package and whether it allows you to consolidate PL SQL constructor function for dynamic messages created in the database. Then you can create, you have an instance of the JavaScript. And he mentioned that you, for example, having apex.message.confirm. A very long question, but short answer is MLE is on the server side. So anything that any JavaScript function that you utilize on the front side will not be really applicable that much right there, right? Just a dynamic thing. Yes, you can utilize PL SQL to create dynamic stuff, but I don't think it's a preferred way. So try as much as possible to stay away from writing code. Try as much as possible to utilize the features of the declarative options of Apex instead of writing code as much as you can. So you can, once you upgrade your Apex instance, all these changes or all your code will be actually upgraded easily without you having to change anything. And you need to make sure that you segregate things. So client side is different than the backend side. So MLE, JavaScript and MLE is running on the server side, not on the client side. Okay, so I'm not going to do the fourth lab for you, but I will just give you a very quick hint. In this lab, what we're trying to do here, and probably this might be one of the biggest advantages of utilizing JavaScript on the server side, is you can actually load external JavaScript modules. Today, there is no declarative option how to do that with a wizard. So we had to come up with a workaround. So the workaround is we're creating a table and we're fetching the JavaScript libraries, the external JavaScript libraries that we would like to utilize in our application. And we're fetching the content and we're simply saving it in that table. So that script will basically create a table. It's called MLE_module. And there is a column that's called content. The type is CLOB. So in that CLOB column, we will save the content of these JavaScript URLs. And then we will create an Apex process that runs every time you're viewing your page, looking for any request from your side that's actually needing one of those JavaScript libraries. All right. So I'm not going to do that for you. You can follow the steps, and if you have any question, you can post it. But it's a very interesting concept where you can actually load external JavaScript code. So the requirement here is we need you to have a QR code generated using JavaScript. We need you to have, for example, an email column, and I need that email to be validated to make sure that it's a valid email. And again, using JavaScript code. The third requirement is we need to have details for each task of the project written in Markdown. And I would like you to use the Markdown JavaScript library. So we will load those three libraries, the Markdown one, the QR code, and the validator, and utilize them in our application. This might take a little bit of time. This might be the longest lab, so probably 15 minutes. I'm going to stay here. So if you have any question, please put it in the chat and follow the steps in lab number 4. If you finish, please let me know as well. I'll be interested to know who can actually finish the whole lab. So you have some time. We have a cool question from Adam. I would like to share the answer with all the rest of attendees today. Like, what is the long-term future of Apex? And I would love to actually share the roadmap for our product. If you go to apex.oracle.com/roadmap, you see the roadmap for Apex and what we are planning in future versions of Oracle Application Express. So having Apex, as I said, as an engine inside the Oracle database, we can utilize every single feature that comes in Oracle database. So whether it comes, enhanced performance, machine learning algorithms, auto ML, the support for even future languages in MLE, for example, probably Java or Python in the future. So anything is added to the database itself, you utilize today in APEX. So all these kind of features, the security features, the enhancement features, the native JSON, for example, which was introduced in 21C with better enhancement, 10 times to read and 4 times to update and so on. All this, you get it out of the box with APEX. Yeah, if you are comfortable with PL SQL, somebody asked Ivan, like, why would you use JavaScript? Well, as I said, there are plenty of ways. There are plenty of reasons. If you have a member in your team that does not know PL SQL at all, and they are fresh graduate, they know how to utilize JavaScript. That's all what they know. It's a life career for them, and they invested time and money to learn and study JavaScript. You can allow them to actually contribute to your application, to your APEX application, utilizing the language that they like and they use. If you have a library, a third-party library written in JavaScript, and you would like to utilize that, so instead of writing it from scratch, if that library does not exist in PL SQL, you can do that as well. Now, somebody asked if there are packages available out of the box, for example, scheduling. There is a feature in APEX called automation that allows you to automate things and schedule things. So it under the hood, it's using DBMS scheduler package from Oracle database. So we have an interface for it. Let me show it to you very quickly. So, because that's a cool question as well. So if you go to the shared components, automations, this is where you can automate your process. You can say when it should run, how frequent it should run, and what kind of actions it should perform. So for those who didn't read my blog post about MLE and the future of server-side programming in Oracle APEX, probably this might answer some of your questions. So I'm going to post this in the chat. Please read it. And there is a link also to another blog post by my colleague Stefan by the title of APEX plus JavaScript equal awesome. So in that blog post, if you go down, I think there is also a link to a nice office hours session by Stefan. And there is also a link for his blog post as well. So read about that and provide your feedback. All right, I think that's it. You can do the hands-on lab at your own time. Please just make sure that once you create your cloud account, select one of those 4 regions where we have 21C. Make sure that you enable the always free option. So 21C is available there. And then follow the steps in our hands-on lab. I would love to see you again in the future. Thank you a lot and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.